Well, welcome. I'm Hannah Finrow. If we haven't met, I am CTED's VP of Marketing and Education. So basically, I teach a lot of people about coaching and I talk about coaching a lot. And I'm excited to be here with you today around just essential tools to start your business. There will be likely things that could be deeper topics here. So a lot of this is going to be more like, what are those tangible tools you need? As well as there might be some reference to things that, well, yeah, of course, there's other things we need as well as we look at starting a coaching business. So as a check-in, I would love to hear from you. What is the first tangible thing you think you need to start a business? A client, a plan, understanding what you'd like to do, a laptop. That could be a very tangible one. Wi-Fi, look at that. There's a lot of pieces that go in to creating a coaching business. A calendar, yeah. A calling, yeah. Who's familiar with the systems tool from 1.0? When systems, we talk about like, what are all the pieces and what are all the intangibles? I want to encourage you to think about your business in this way, because it also depends on what you're wanting to do with your business. But be thinking about in terms of a system, what are all the tangibles? What are all the intangibles? And what are the things that you can see and the things you can't see as we go through it? Because there's a lot of different ways to interact. I am going to be sharing quite a few different like tangible tools. And we'll deep dive into this. There's a lot more than this, but the top three that I want you to be thinking about is you have a way for clients to meet with you, schedule with you, and pay you. Three, very main ones. That's not extensive, but do they have a way to meet with you, a way to pay you, and a way to schedule with you? But before all that, oftentimes, yes, I'd say there's a lot of coaching that happens for coaches to get clear on their businesses. But once you have gotten clear on purpose, passion, mission, everything else like that, especially working on your coaching is a big part of working on your coaching business, right? Like if you don't believe in the product you're selling, like you can have all the tangible pieces, but you need to have that belief in it. So just want to encourage you, working on your coaching is working on your business. But once you've worked on your coaching and you're like, I feel good about and confident in my coaching, then what? What I've seen is oftentimes coaches just get hung up on a business name as their first step. So I want to propose an activity for you. If that is you, what's the worst name to name your coaching business? And why is it the worst name? And then you can flip it and find more about that. There's a lot you could do with naming, but don't let that hang you up. So oftentimes as you move forward in coaching, it'll evolve, you get clear on a name. So I would say first, having a name could be your own name. As it's a really good place to start. And you can always add a DBA, doing business as, afterwards. Because once you have a name, then you can look at what business structure you need to set. Because depending on where you're at, and I know there might be a few international people listening or here with us today. And so I'm going to show you kind of like, I live in the state of Tennessee, how you could do and actually create a business. But you need a name. Don't get hung up on a name. So coach yourself through it a little bit. If anything, use your name and add coaching on, or just your name, LLC. It's very likely that's not going to be taken. And then you can always evolve and get clear as you go. But you are already you, and you already are a niche by being you. Actually, I was just talking to a coach yesterday. Like, you are your niche. Like, you can start there. Yes, there's more to figure out, more niche services and programs to offer, but don't let that hang you up on just starting the business and getting out there, because it'll be clearer the more you move forward. You would also want to check if anything's copyrighted already, because you don't want to get yourself in that and something like that. And then I would say, aside from anything that's going to be copyrighted, it's also, is there something that would be unclear? Would this be confusing? So you could step into a little bit of empathy, like, okay, if I was someone else, like, what would my assumption be? Because oftentimes we put pressure and we want a name to represent everything that we are and everything that the business is for us. And the reality is a name can't do all of that. And so when we take weight off a name, clear is better. Is it understandable? Does it communicate what this is? That could just be a helpful place to start. But don't put all the pressure on your name, because you will have the opportunity to name other things. You'll be able to name, like, I want to have a whole separate workshop on like naming programs and packages, and there's so much more that you can do that you can name. So don't put all the weight on your business name. Clear is better, and just make sure it's not copyrighted or owned. The other thing is you would want to check domain availability. So you can go to Google Domains or GoDaddy and just check, like, if you have a name, check before you buy a business license. Obviously check copyright, but then make sure that it's actually available. If you want to have a website, that would be a big piece too. But yes, I would say it's not copyrighted. Is it clear? And then don't put weight on it to represent everything that you are. I will say, like, I mean, my names have evolved. I mean, I put a lot of pressure on naming it at first, and it's like, it's never gonna be perfect. It's Hannah Finrow. And then at one time my business was Pause and Be, which is like, this does not make any sense. But it was just like something I really like deeply like connected to. And then my official practice name is Avenue Coaching now, which is, it's kind of it gets evolved. I mean, I'm 11 years in now. Some questions I have used actually coaching people through this. So what do you want to portray? Think about the name as it's for your clients, not for you. How can you go from hobby to business? Think about just even a running list of words you like collecting words that like resonate with you. If your brand was a person, you can use terminology and industry. Think about nouns and adjectives. Think about, of course, I mentioned worst possible names. You can look at think about naming like a puzzle. Think about the characteristic of what you're naming. Like think about an example I like is like running shoes. Well, what kind of running shoes? What makes them different? Right. And you can look at different books, library, dictionary, things like that. Anything obscure, and just get another angle of a name. And then go on and what sets you apart. So I'll put that in the chat. If you want to just copy that and do some self-coaching, or there's a lot of coaches we can connect you to. If you're not already connected, to play around with naming. But I just encourage you, don't get stuck on name, and just know you always can add it and evolve later. So don't get stuck on a name, but rather once you're clear, starting with a business structure and becoming legit is an important piece. I will say you don't necessarily need a business website to start with. That's not even up there on the main things you need. Because again, a lot of coaches get hung up on needing the website to just look just perfect before I get started. So again, the three things I would say it comes down to is, do you have a way for them to schedule with you, a way to pay you, and a way to find you is another piece too. So it could be a website, but it could be social media. It could be from word of mouth. Honestly, that's how I started, very much word of mouth. And that you have your own little marketers. Every client is a potential marketer for you. Yeah, ChatGPT. Oh yeah, you could play with ChatGPT around naming too, and just help you see other angles, other things. But just don't get stuck on it. And I would say don't get stuck on any of these steps. So once you have a name, then you can look at, well, what business formation should I have? Because there's a lot of different options. So what I'm going to share with you, I have personally used LegalZoom. It is a paid service, but if you don't use LegalZoom, there is, if you go to register, business, and then here's the different types. LLC is very common, a C Corp or S Corp, a DBA, nonprofit, or sole proprietorship. But help me decide. And so this is where you can take a little quiz, and it gives you more clarity on what kind of business formation would be in line with what you're hoping to do. So LegalZoom is one resource. It is a paid service. But in my opinion, it can be really helpful if this part of the process is overwhelming you. Like, what do I choose, and why would I choose that, and how do I get that set up in my state, or whatever it might be. This is more for people that reside in the U.S. All right. But there's something that a lot of people don't know about, and it's something called SCORE. And so I'm going to show you that now, and I highly recommend that you check this out. SCORE is free. It is basically, you can get a business mentor for free. And they have, there's a lot on here. You can obviously select your location, but they actually have a little course of like how to start a business. And again, instead of getting hung up on the steps, I encourage you with this free resource. You can get a mentor for free. I know I actually heard about it first because I knew coaches that were doing it. So here's this resource. So you can find a mentor near you, and then there's this whole course that you can look at, and it's a free course. Not like you have to register, but it can give you more help with the structure of actually setting it up. Because again, we get hung up on the intangibles. And if we can start moving some of the tangible pieces forward, you'll get more clarity. And it is helpful to have mentors or people to ask feedback. The other thing that you can do is go to your state or country, wherever you're at. So this is the state of Tennessee. So I went to business, and you can look at new business. And it gives you, there's some resources. And then there's more information about how to register a business. Again, LegalZoom like gives you, I was a fan of LegalZoom because it outlined everything for you of like what you needed to do. But you can also go to your local state page, and like usually there's business tab where you can look at like how do you start a business in this place. So what we've shared so far, like check out SCORE, check out LegalZoom. You can take that little quiz and get more ideas about the business formation that would best fit what you want to do. And then look at your local government, and you can get steps for like how to start a business. What I like about LegalZoom is it takes all that, oh no, what do I need to make sure I'm hitting everything? You tell exactly where you're at, and you get a list of everything you need to do. I will say I've launched a business in Washington State as well as Tennessee. Tennessee is utterly more confusing, and you have to like, I mean, even our driver's license, I had to drive out an hour, whereas in like Washington State, like there's a DMV everywhere. Like it's so different. Same thing with, you have to like hand a check to the local office here in Tennessee. It's just it's so different, whereas you do everything online in Washington. So just that was a really much a relief for me because of how different it was. And I was like, oh, it's only like $100-something, and it organizes everything for me. And I have no doubt that I'm not getting everything done that I need to get done to be legit as a business. But you can do your own research. Those are some really helpful resources. And you can even Google how to start a business in wherever your location is and pull some resources. But get a list, and so you can start moving forward, so you know exactly what you need to do to form a business and a business formation that is right for you and right with what you want to do with coaching. Other thoughts or questions before we go on? Yes. So Alice, I would recommend that you always have contracts with clients, and that is something I'm going to talk about today. You do need a client contract. But I would with a practice client, because you're also protecting yourself. And I'll talk a little bit about liability insurance a little bit here. But I would. You're not required to. We don't, as CTDU, we don't require coaches in training to show us the signed contract, anything like that. But I would highly recommend it. And also it's going to help them take it more seriously. But it's a commitment. It's a contract. Speaking of contracts, there is a sample contract in your curriculum as well as an ICF sample contract. We can't legally tell you this is what should be on your contract. But those two can give you kind of an idea. In terms of signing a contract, I have personally used HelloSign for all of my signing of contracts in my personal business. And it's free. Like I think it's up to 3 free signatures a month. It officially moved over to being Dropbox Sign. So Dropbox bought it, but it's really easy to use. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat too, so you can save that if you want to check that out. But you want something that's easy. And I found this to be the easiest way. You do not need a full service CRM, client relationship management software to start. So there's many of those. Right. CTDU, we use HubSpot. Like there's so much shit, like there's classes just about how to use HubSpot. Again, I would say instead of starting a business, you don't need that. But that is one of them. You might be familiar with Honeybook is another one. Dubsado is another common one. Practice Better is a health coach specific one that's HIPAA compliant. One that I have personally used, I know a lot of coaches use, is a little bit newer, but they're specifically for coaches. It's called Paperbell. And that also integrates with Stripe, which is what I prefer for payment systems. So it allows you to create packages and integrate seamlessly with your website. But again, you don't need that to start with. You don't need that to start with. But just so you know, like the bare pieces to start, like you don't need everything figured out in terms of like full CRM to start with. You might evolve, and the more you work, see what you want to do with coaching, you might get into more of a full service one, or, like, do you have a way to capture leads? And there's just so much more to business. But don't overwhelm yourself with everything that you're going to need probably to in the future. But what do you need right now to get started? And then you're going to get more insights about what you need, and then you can personalize that from there. So Paperbell is one that I've personally used, but I would say just check out different CRMs and just stay curious about them. Typically, I think it's around Black Friday. Paperbell does run a special where you get like $100 for a year, which is a really cool time to try that out, if that is one you're curious about. Yeah, so Alice, that's another thing. I don't believe you need an intake form, but it's up to you. And I would just encourage you not to overwhelm someone with a ton of questions on an intake form. I typically do what I call as a connection call. So ultimately, if we decide we don't want to work together, are we just able to connect as human beings and go from there? Or you can call that a goal setting call, discovery call, whatever it might be.
When you're starting off as a new coach and you have a new business, I'm trying to figure out, like, what would it look like? Like, how many clients should you take on at first? And like, how do you schedule them out? Like, do you do like, 8 to 9, then the next client 9:15 to 10:15? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's really personal to the person. What I would say is, like, take in mind your other commitments, like what would allow you to still honor all your values. In terms of that, I will say, it is really helpful to have space in between sessions, to reset, and then you're going to be even more present. So know your own energy and what helps you refuel. And, like I will say, for example, as you grow as a coach too, I can't do 8 hours straight of MCC coaching. I just can't. And I was actually just talking to coach. I'm like, this is a sign you're growing, that you can't do coaching 8 hours a day. That's okay. But having space in between, and I think as a new coach, just staying curious, like, what am I noticing about myself? What days, or what's going on in my life? I've heard even coaches like that are syncing it to like their monthly cycles. Like there's just so much you can explore, depending on your life. Like I know for me, I have little children, so I don't try and schedule really early in the morning when they're here, or at evening when it's family time. So I'm honoring that. I will tell you, and like as a new coach, I had clients that needed to reschedule, and I gave away my lunch hour and burnt myself out really fast. So I would encourage you, like, how can you honor you and your energy, your time? And you'll find out more of like what's the cadence that's right for you and right for clients. There's some clients that could meet every week or every other week. It just depends. And so I usually always personalize it to the person as they get started. They know more of what they want. But for you, I would just encourage, just be mindful of back-to-backs. Even a 5-minute break could be amazing for you, and just resetting and refocusing and re-energizing. And you don't want to take on so many clients where you feel like you can't be your best coach self. So that depends on the person. I mean, I've coached 200 people a month, and it worked. But what do you have to set up, and what does it need to look like? And that was before kids. I could not do that now. And also I would say, not essential to getting started in business, but be curious, like, what works for me, what doesn't. What do I want? Business is part of life, right? It's an aspect of your life. It's not your whole life. So you can go back to the wheel of life, and explore, like, how do I want this to fit in? How do I want this to interact with other areas of my life? Another great coaching activity. And I would say it's best to start with individual coaching. If you eventually want to offer like team or group coaching, but start with individual, because then you're going to see, like, you can, for example, like leading a workshop, which is my preference, with like a team or group versus like a whole like team engagement. But that can be fantastic in leading into one-on-one coaching. But you can also one-on-one coaching and saying, okay, I want to have more of an impact in less time, creating a workshop or a group experience. And we'll make sure to touch on that in when we talk about creating, like we're gonna have a whole business builder on creating packages, experiences, programs, things like that. Other questions or thoughts so far? How are we doing?
I apologize, Hannah, if you already answered this, but as we're starting out, when you launch, like is there a standard for, like, if you're doing this full time, what would you recommend as a starting out kind of client base that you're aiming for? Like what's a good number of clients that you kind of want to be focused on at any one time?
Depends on your energy and everything else that's in your life and in your schedule. But the right number is, what is the amount of people that you could be fully present with and engage with and feel like your best coach self with. So that, I mean, it just depends on each individual's life and schedule. It's my rule of thumb was, can I make this person feel like my only client? Like that's the way I want to serve people. So I'd say just get to know yourself and like, as a new coach, like one client, I'm like, okay, I'm going to like serve them and they're my, as if they're my only client, but you get more clients. How can I serve them as if they're my only client? And that for me, that was really helpful for me. Cause like, I don't want someone to feel like, oh, I'm just another client. I don't want anyone to ever feel like a transaction or a number, because coaching is so relational.
So like just piggybacking on what she was saying, sort of, I'm trying to figure out what my niche is for coaching. Like, is it bad to just be a general coach, compared to doing a niche? And then after that, my next question would have been like, starting off as a beginning coach, like what is the typical rate you would charge?
Yeah, right out of 1.0, you can charge like, then this is in the Build Your Life's Work curriculum we provide in part of in 1.0. But typically $50 to $100 an hour to start is the typical like range. I usually tell coaches you don't want to be charging so much that you feel like a imposter, but too little that you feel taken advantage of. So what is that middle place where you feel like, and again, that's an exchange of something that can help them get even more out of it because they are paying for it. And so I've had even coaches in training have paid clients because they're like, it helps their clients be more committed, even if it's a lower amount than 50 to 100, or it could be 50 to 100. That can affect the commitment of clients. Starting general is going to give you a lot of feedback of like who lights you up and what is it about those kind of people or that kind of sessions that's going to give you a lot of information about how you want to focus your coaching. So I will say, oftentimes what I tell coaches is like, build a bridge from where you're at. And that becoming kind of sometimes become your niche. Like, what's the bridge from where you're at right now, whatever career or you've been in, like, what's the bridge that'll help you transition into coaching? Because it's also really close. So like, I was a general manager running a Jamba Juice, if anyone knows what Jamba Juice is. And I was a college student finishing up college while working 50, 60 hours a week. Well, I started working with students first. And I'll tell you, I've seen threads in the people I've worked with that it's not even about demographics. And we'll talk more about this in the niching workshop, but there's something called psychographics. Like, what are their values and their hopes and dreams? Different things like that you can niche as well. So don't get hung up on it. I would say, no, it's not bad to be a general coach. What break my heart is if coaches don't put themselves out there because they're not clear, because once you put yourself out there, you get clearer. So if you want to coach, get out there and coach, and you're going to find out more of like the impact you want to make on the world. There's also another exercise you can do. And I really believe, and I actually had a mentor tell me this, like, your life coaching will flow from your life story. I'm like, that's so cool. Like, it is true though. Like the things that move us, like we like what got you here in the first place? What is that thing that moved you? And so you can list out in 2 columns, anything you've ever struggled with and every role you've ever been in, and just look at what is the kind of the most compelling match above that, who you've been and everything you struggled with. So I'll tell you, in working with students, I found a sub niche of like, I just love working with people that were struggling with people pleasing, because that's what I had conquered and seeing myself grow from. And I still see that to this day. Like, there's been threads. It's like, and now it's kind of like this intersection that I operate from of like people pleasing, procrastination, and perfectionism. There's like all of these things that intersect, but it's evolved over time. And it's really interesting also to ask other people what they would call your niche. Like at one time, I think people labeled me as like a creative entrepreneur coach, or something like that. I'm like, okay, cool. And then another is like, it's like, yeah, I kind of am a post-traumatic growth coach. Just and I talk a lot about like story and things. So I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So don't try to make sense of it all yourself. Get started. It'll make more sense as you get started, and it'll evolve over time. But you could also, who have you been, and what have you struggled with, and start to find some themes. What lights you up? Right. You can also explore your own values, mission, and vision too, and that can give you some clarity. I literally just had a conversation with a coach yesterday, and I like, she's trying to figure out what to call herself. What kind of coach am I? I'm like, I could tell. I mean, this was not a coaching conversation. This is a friend, and so I told her that she's getting her own way with trying to figure out the perfect name. So sometimes it's not niching you as a coach; it's niching your service as a coach, which is a helpful distinction to make at times. Because like, oh, I want to represent everything I am. Same thing with naming a business, right? Like it's like a name. You can't put all that on a name. You can't. It's just not going to work, and it's gonna hold you back. So if niching is holding you back, I would get out there anyways. It would be my thought for you, and you'll get more clarity on what lights you up. What are those sessions where you just like get in flow, and you could be here all day with that person? Like, what is it about that person? But niching will be its own workshop because there's so much to it, as well as programs, packages, things like that. That being said, I have used a lot of different systems over the years. My favorites as of right now, and I encourage you to check it out. I know Brittany McDonald, who's on our team, which her and I go way back, even before CTDU. She likes PayPal to start with because you can also track invoices and things like that. I have used PayPal before as well. They do take a fee. Most places will take a fee. I have used Business Venmo. You can do that as well. But now Venmo and PayPal are the same, so PayPal is definitely superior. But what I really like now, it integrates to a lot of things easily, or you can just create a package really quickly and send it to someone, is Stripe. So I'd encourage you to check out Stripe. That one has been the easiest, and then directly deposits to the bank account I choose and things like that. So that's what I recommend as far as payment. What would make it easy for someone to pay you? And what I like about Stripe is it could be a card, it could be an account. It just gives, I have actually a lot of international people, and so Stripe can be really helpful for that. So I just think about your ideal clients. What would make it easy for them? And what would make it clear for them? With PayPal, you can do invoices and things like that and send those out. So you can also brand it to your business, and so there's all that customization too. So I would just check out those. So there's a lot of different booking apps. I have used Calendly, which I do like. However, there's been some cool happenings in Google that I'm going to share with you too. But having some way to schedule with you that's easy. You don't want to be playing email tag with clients. So what's an easy way for them to schedule with you? So whether it's Calendly, whether it's Paperwell has scheduling factored in. I've heard a lot of people like Acuity or You Can Book Me. That's another one that you can look at. But recently, Google has evolved, and I'm excited to share with you because you also need a place for them to meet you. And most coaching is virtual. I will say, even if I could meet with someone in person, like that's more like I get to connect with you and meet you as a human. A public place is not the best place for a coaching session. I have done it, not a fan of it, and found it's just different. And at this point, when you're a new business, you don't want to be like, I need to get an office before I can start. Like that's really, unless you're going to have something built in, or there are places where you can rent an office for a day, or you can host a workshop. I mean, I have even a friend who's a speech coach here in the Nashville area, where she just rents rooms as needed because everyone wants to meet virtually. So I'd encourage you, probably not a physical location unless you have a plan, because that's a lot of overhead right off the bat. But having some virtual place. Zoom, yes, superior, but then you can't record as much as you'd like to without no limit. So the free account is a really good place to start, but I would highly actually recommend Google. The Google Workspace. I think it's just to have the email, which is a nice professional thing to have. Like my official business email is hello@hannahfinrow.com. Like it's nice to have that. Pretty easy to set up. And then, but now what they've added is Google Meet. It's just like Zoom, and it's like $12 a month total. You have Google Suite for $12.99. I'm like, I see $12 is $12.99 is $12, and I always get in trouble with my husband. He's like, that's $12.99. That's $13. I'm like, no, it's $12. Anyways, he's an accountant. I'm not, obviously. So, side note, that's a helpful thing to have for a business, having an accountant as a friend or partner. But they also have the scheduling. They actually have a scheduling page now that's Google that you can send people like a scheduling link in Google. You can have the business email and you can have the meeting software all in one place. So that recent kind of evolution, I'm personally really excited about. And like I use Zoom for CTVU. I'm now using Google Meet for personal meetings because now I can do full recordings. And guess what? They automatically create a folder in your Google Drive of the recording. I'm like, this is so easy. And it gives you a transcript. I'm really excited about it. It's a good practice to make sure that whoever your client is, they add your email as a preferred user. So that they are getting your emails and able to see things. Because I've had like people not get my emails because like they have certain blockers on theirs. So, but yes, you can join it. But if there's any issues, Google Scheduler, their scheduler is awesome. I would encourage you to check it out and play with it. But I'm really excited about it. The more things are in one place, right? And like Zoom, because Zoom is really expensive. Definitely worth it. I mean, I spend a lot of my day on Zoom. I can tell you I like it. But in terms of like business, if I was going to start from fresh, I would do all Google personally. Again, I would encourage you to do your research, like, because you need bottom line way for people to pay you, meet with you, schedule with you. And Google has two of those, a way to meet with you and that piece. In addition to having a Google Suite, the professional email, you can have a whole drive access to. So again, my thought is that's really helpful, but what works for you? So right now, like my kind of, I guess the technical term is like a tech stack is like Stripe and Google Suite. Some people use Teams as a place to meet. You just want it to be professional, have a good quality connection. And I will say it's so helpful to keep recording even when you don't need to, because you can learn so much from your sessions. Or like, for example, I mentor a lot of coaches and they request the recordings. And so we have those and they can get even more of everything I was telling them. So I like to offer that, which is really helpful. In terms of payment, again, kind of check out some options. I found Stripe to be the most easeful. But of course, PayPal, Venmo, there's a lot of different things that you can do. As a new coach, I had some clients that wanted to send me checks. That still does happen some of these days. But having something like what would help my clients be able to pay me, and make it easy for them. And you can look at kind of like that workflow. I'd encourage you to check out contracts. But another thing I want to bring up is liability insurance. Now, in your contract, you should be like stating that you're not liable and that you're taking actions based on what they want. And of course, as coaches, we're not giving advice or telling people what to do. So there already is that level of protection. But I would encourage you to check out liability insurance. So there's actually two I'm going to show you. Again, do your own research and you can decide what's best for you. But through ICF, you can actually, they have like a whole bunch of resources. They have like coaching websites. There's a paper bell. But Westminster is the insurance that you can get through ICF. So you get a discount through ICF, and you can look at that piece. So if you check out Westminster Global, so you need to be an ICF member to do this one. But it's pretty affordable and worth it for peace of mind. I do know a lot of coaches that have used alternative balance and been really happy with it too. So alternative balance is another option for liability insurance. If you're still like in training, but you want to get liability insurance, you can look at, there's like a student rate and then there's a day rate. The other piece that I want to mention, a lot of coaches end up going for an LLC because that can also be an extra measure of protection. You cannot be sued. Only your company can. So that's another like measure of like protecting your liability. So again, you can consider that and think through that when you decide on a business structure. But takeaway so far, I don't want you to let a name hold you back. Get started on like, what is everything I need to get in place? You can check out SCORE, your local government, getting clear on all the structure pieces, and then put the main things in place. Okay, do they have a way to meet me, pay me, schedule with me? Just get those things in place. And then of course, there's more than that you want to get in place, but then you can look at, okay, what else needs to be in place? Okay, contract, I have a way for them to sign the contract. So that's where I've used HelloSign. And that's pretty automated, pretty easy way. If you, I really encourage you to think about note taking. Where like do you have client records? Because then that's where you probably have to consider where are those being stored, as well as like is that protected? So for example, if I'm working with health and wellness clients, I'm also a board certified health coach. I would use something like Practice Better. For like if I have people's health information and data like that I don't want to have anywhere else. I want to have it in a HIPAA compliant place. The other piece like that I personally do, even if I'm not doing health and wellness coaching, is I like to have as little records and notes as possible from that are mine, because that's more that I have on the client that I have to protect. So again, kind of thinking about that space. So what I've developed personally, and again, another plug for Google, is I have them create a Google document and share it with me. So it's their notes, and then I collaborate with it. And I will tell you, I went on the deep dive of like super in-depth note taking that takes so much energy. And so that's something I've developed, is like, wait, great, another use for Google. And then they're getting notes, but then it's their notes. And it's even more helping them own the process. But again, so that's another thing to think through is, what does record management need to look like? I would say for challenges, I mean, what I focused on when I first started marketing myself, like, don't forget your coaching skills as you market, right? Like your ability to be empathetic and connect. And I think for me, I guess I kind of avoided some of the first, like the challenges, because I was thinking, okay, I want to build a bridge rather than I need to go from this to a full coaching business. Because then what I didn't want is it to be like transactional. Like, of course I have to make money, right? But I didn't want to sacrifice the connection and the relational aspect, because that's what sells coaching, is the being of coaching that you bring into those interactions. So I would say that challenge, it just took time to kind of evolve that way. The other thing you could look at is once you get your certification and credentialing, you could partner with organizations that get clients for you, which is helpful. So like BetterUp is one of those that does more executive clients. Lyra, several of our coaches have gotten into like health and wellness coaching through them. There's one called Coach Hub. There's a lot of other like companies that get clients for you, and that I find is really helpful. Because then you can also focus on building your business the way you want to build it in line with what you want. But also you want to move more into coaching, where yes, you do have to make money, but you don't want it to be like pressure and not be able to be that coach self with them. The other thing I say is like lack of clarity or getting hung up on perfect names for things or perfect ways of saying things. The more I've gotten into coaching, and I've been, coaching professionally 11 years, before that was, a client. So I've gone from all the levels of experience here. Like just be able to authentically talk about what you care about and connect to other people. And if I was starting from fresh, I mean, probably a lot of you know, like I'm on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I wish I would have gotten LinkedIn sooner. Like honestly, LinkedIn has brought more to my business than a website. Because you could guide people to your website, but think about LinkedIn could be its own landing page. There's probably going to be a whole separate workshop at some point too. But like just starting to build relationships. Don't think of it as marketing and like pitching yourself. Think as like I'm genuinely connecting, and just use all your coaching skills into those interactions. That's like the biggest thing you have, that is that you're allowing them to experience being with you, that will help them want to experience more of that. So I would say don't let like having everything perfect hold you back. But just can you start talking about what you care about, connecting with others, Actually had Brittany share a little bit. She can't be here, but one of the things that she said was, where are your clients, and go like find them. So meet them where they're at. So where are they, you kind of get to know people and like, where are they hanging out at? And where could you meet them? Where are they already at? And that could be another helpful thing to think about. Another thing, and this is going to probably be its own workshop, but like creating a workshop that could be a lead magnet. So it connects people around a common topic. Like, you're all here because you want to start a business. Well, that could be lead into like one-on-one opportunities, right? So that could be a whole other thing that you develop. And you have all your tools from your 1.0 or other coach training that you even developed in your own, that you could create a workshop that draws people into like working with you one-on-one. So I'd say think about your energy and your other life commitments, your values as you think about marketing. Because marketing could be its own job. It really could. So how can you connect it and help it kind of complement each other, rather than like, you don't want to lose sight of your coaching and your coach beingness as you like try and market, because it's not different. It's really just it's an overflow. All right. So your next steps, yes, there's more research to do. Do clients have a way to pay you, meet with you, schedule with you? Getting some of those things in place. If you don't already have a business name, a business set up, do some of that research. You might even get a SCORE mentor. Like I mentioned, that is free, but there's also that course you can like look through and get more information, or Google how to start a business X, and just get the ball rolling. There's gonna be more that you need. Again, we're gonna be hosting workshops on like finding your niche, creating your first package. How do you do client research? That's a whole other thing too. How do you find clients? So just keep that in mind. We'll do more and more as we go on. And it's not just like, okay, you're done, you're good now. There's always more. But just, I would say, encourage you, get started where you're at, rather than waiting to get started until you have the perfect name, everything figured out. Because you'll figure out more as you get started than if you wait to get started. You're welcome to email me if you have any further questions or things that you'd like to see, because I know this is not exclusively covering everything, but it's hopefully getting you a running start. All right. So good to see you all, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and get building. Get started where you're at. Okay.